How to Stay Invisible. Chapter 8. Raymond began to grow accustomed to his new routine. He would wake up, clean up around camp, slip into the crowd at the bus lot, and into the school. He would sit through his classes, listen to Harlan's endless chatter, and disappear back into the woods. He foraged for tree nuts, gathered sticks, did his homework while it was still light, and then fell asleep. He fished in the afternoons and used his fishing knife to whittle chunks of wood to pass the time. He used the empty ravioli can as a makeshift cup, scooping water from the creek and boiling it over his fire. The camp wasn't exactly home, but it worked. The more it worked, the more confident Raymond became in his ability to endure the winter, to survive in the woods behind his middle school. He tried to build fires only when needed, conserving his gum wrappers, and the shelter of the tree kept him dry on rainy nights. He finished the lean-to, weaving in so many sticks and vines that hardly any light passed through. Then he laid ferns and brush on top like a roof, hoping the moisture and rain would roll off. He found a tree near the river with bark that peeled off like paper. It was so thin that Raymond could light it easily as tinder on the first try. This bark, Raymond thought, was made just for him. He called it a paper tree and had since found 2 more like it that kept his fires blazing without any trouble at all. He used his bar of soap to clean himself and his clothes in the creek, and occasionally, when he was sure he was alone, he would swim naked in the river, submerging himself in the cold water to rinse the dirt from his growing hair. A kid in his math class made a comment about Raymond smelling like a campfire, but he brushed it off and ignored it. Besides, it wasn't unusual for kids in this town to smell like a campfire. He saw the same old man fishing on the other side of the river 2 more times, but the man never offered more than a tip of his hat in Raymond's direction. Once, when Raymond caught a big bass, the man laughed a little at Rosie jumping for joy. It was the only thing he or the man had caught that day. Raymond kept himself fed from the river, the school cafeteria, and his nighttime dumpster dives, occasionally finding unopened packs of crackers or Pop-Tarts. One night, he found an entire box of canned peaches. He ran back to the hollow, tripping over roots and branches. He opened a can and drank the juice first, savoring the sweet syrup before pouring the peaches into his mouth. He ate 6 cans in a row before forcing himself to stop and save the rest. Some nights, he would dream about his parents and wake up missing them. They were simple dreams, mostly, like wishes that Raymond often said on his birthday each year. His mother would ask how his day was and make him an after-school snack, or help him with his homework, something she had never done before, but Raymond had seen mothers do on TV. In his dreams, his mother was kind and gentle, not at all like the hard, disengaged person she was in real life. Sometimes, after waking, he would lie there in the tree and wonder where they were. Did they miss him? Were they sorry? Would they ever come back? He tried to remind himself that he didn't need them, that he was fine without them, but he never quite believed himself. It wasn't all bad living in the woods. Raymond liked the quiet and the freedom. Of course, there were some things he couldn't help but miss, like a bed. The tree hollow was as hard as stone, and there were knots that stuck into Raymond's back. And a bathroom. Raymond had learned to adjust his bathroom schedule early on. He didn't mind going in the woods, but it wasn't exactly ideal, and he definitely developed a new appreciation for toilets and running water. Still, It was better than the children's home. Raymond sat with his eyes closed in Mr. Brewer's math class one morning. It was the warmest room in the building, and he felt thawed out from the night before by the time the class ended each morning. It had been raining for days. What started as just a misting on Sunday gave way to a heavy, stinging rain that Raymond felt in his bones. When it finally ebbed, dark clouds hung low, blocking the sun. It made drying out a near impossibility. He had used almost an entire pack of gum trying to start a fire the night before, and when he finally got one lit, the air was too wet to keep it going. He unwrapped leftover sandwich crusts for Rosie. Then he ate a Hershey bar from his stash and his last can of peaches, shivering in the cold of the hollow. "Raymond!" Mr. Brewer yelled, jolting him awake. In the warmth of the room, Raymond had drifted off to sleep without realizing it. Every set of eyes was on him now. "Sorry," he mumbled, cheeks hot. "Is my class so boring to you that it puts you to sleep?" Mr. Brewer asked. Raymond just stared at his desk. He could feel the glares of his classmates burning into his skin. Most of these kids probably didn't even know his name until this very minute. "Well, are you going to answer me?" "No," Raymond choked out. "No, you aren't going to answer me?" Raymond flinched. "No, your class isn't boring." "Well, just to be sure, why don't you stand up for the rest of the class so you aren't tempted to doze off again?" Raymond looked up at Mr. Brewer and realized that with horror that he was serious. He pushed his chair back, scraping it on the linoleum floor, and stood. He stared down at his desk. He could feel the heat in his throat as a lump swelled, threatening to explode. He swallowed hard. Raymond spent the rest of the class standing in the middle of the room while Mr. Brewer continued teaching as if nothing had happened. The lesson was on slope formulas, but Raymond didn't hear any of it. He had broken the cardinal rule. He had gotten himself noticed, and once you are seen, there's no going back. Once you get noticed, it's like there's a spotlight that follows you wherever you go. Raymond spent the rest of the day stiff with humiliation, imagining staring eyes following him through the hallways. Miss Marcus passed out the latest winter jamboree flyer and assigned the outsiders an English class, but Raymond's mind was too clouded to concentrate. He was relieved to sit down in art class where Harlan's constant talking distracted him from his previous humiliation. "Man, sure like to go this NASCAR race," Harlan was saying. "What NASCAR race?" Raymond asked. Harlan was looking at the winter jamboree and bingo night flyer. Raymond leaned over to get a better look. The flyer advertised various games and prizes, including a pie throwing contest and a raffle. But the majority of the flyer was taken up with the annual bingo game entry fees and prizes. The jamboree was 1 week away, and the bingo game would cost $4 to enter. And Raymond skimmed the list of prizes. A Yeti cooler, an at-home spa kit, an autographed basketball, a thermal sleeping bag, tickets to a semi-professional NASCAR race in Commerce, gift baskets filled with themed goodies supplied by local businesses. Most of the items were of no interest to Raymond, but the sleeping bag caught his attention. The idea of a warm night's sleep was enough to make Raymond cry out with longing. "Just $4?" Raymond whispered. "Yep," said Harlan. If I win those tickets to the race, I'll take you with me. I don't think my gran would mind." Raymond gave Harlan a half smile. He considered asking Harlan if he could borrow the money, but decided against it. "I guess your chances are as good as any," Raymond said. "I'd like that sleeping bag myself." "The sleeping bag?" asked Harlan, making a face. "Shoot, Ray, there's plenty of better prizes than that." Harlan had started calling Raymond Ray. And although Raymond didn't care for the nickname that was also his father's, he didn't say anything about it. Harlan had turned out to be a good friend, and Raymond still felt bad for lying to him about his birthday. "I like to camp," Raymond said, and then quickly added, "but going to a race would be fun too." "More than fun," Harlan said. "It'd be awesome. I wonder if Dale Earnhardt Jr. would be there. Not racing, of course, but maybe just there in the crowd. Maybe we would get to meet him and he could take us for a ride in his car." Raymond didn't have the heart to tell Harlan that there was no way Dale Earnhardt Jr., or any other driver for that matter, would ever let Harlan get anywhere near their car. But he let him enjoy the fantasy. "So you're going to the jamboree then?" "Shoot, yeah," said Harlan. "Wouldn't miss it. Don't tell me you're thinking of missing it. Boy, it's going to be some kind of fun." "I'll be there," said Raymond, still wondering how he could come up with the money. "I heard about what happened in math," Harlan finally said, lowering his voice. It was obvious that he had been wanting to bring it up. The fact that he had held out this long made Raymond like him even more. "Yeah," Raymond said, turning red around the ears. "I had Mr. Brewer last year when he taught 6th grade. He's a jerk. Even I kept my mouth shut in that class." "Yeah," Raymond said again, not wanting to relive his misery. "It'll blow over," said Harlan, giving Raymond a stiff pat on the back. "Don't let it get to you." "Thanks," Raymond muttered. Eager to change the subject, he asked, "You reading The Outsiders for English?" Harlan nodded. "We started it today. I don't really like reading all that much, but the first chapter was good." "I like the fighting." "Yeah," said Raymond. He knew Harlan wouldn't care, but he didn't want to admit that he hadn't started reading it yet. On the way out of school that day, Joseph Banker, the kid that had made paper footballs in Raymond's science class, shoved into him. "Watch it," he said, "or you sleepwalking now too." Raymond didn't say anything, stepping to the side to let Joseph go by. There was plenty of room to walk around him, but Joseph pushed his back as he walked past, causing Raymond to drop his things. "Don't worry about him," said Harlan, helping Raymond pick up his books and then jogging to keep up with him on the way to the bus lot. "He'll forget all about it by tomorrow." Raymond tried to smile. He hoped Harlan was right. It felt like there were too many eyes on Raymond in the bus lot. His run-in with Mr. Brewer and now Joseph were obviously the only interesting things that had happened that day. He made up an excuse about forgetting something in his cubby and went back inside the school. This time, he left out the side door by the baseball field where nobody was around. When he was sure the coast was clear, he darted for the woods. He was almost to the tree line when a car turned into the side lot. Raymond didn't know for sure if the driver had seen him, but he didn't slow down to find out. He raced straight through the woods to the hollow and didn't turn around once.